Hi. Hi guys. How are you doing? I am actually from the South. I live in New York City, and I've been here for it's 2022. I came to New York City. I had I had transferred with the Gap or Gap Inc. retail um, in 2010 from South Florida to New York City. I eventually became a cleaning lady and an errander, and I did some concierge work, and I wrote a book about it, which had a lot to do with wages. The book was called Maid, like MAID, cleaning lady, cleaning person, Made Not For You. I started writing this book with that title in 2010, and I was able to publish it after edition by summer of 2014. It was re-edited, and it was back in self-publication on Amazon and iTunes in 2015. So it's kind of an old book. I wrote this book based on my concerns more than anything else when it comes to substandard wages and employer abuse. So that is that's my experience, the bulk of my experience in New York City. That's why I remained in New York City, because I wanted to complete this and just be done with it and try to make a life for myself as a real estate agent by the time it was 2015. In early 2016, I started working for a broker. Not the best broker. It was kind of like, the typical landlord pays 85 or 90% when they're probably paying the full month, and we're not being really given the truthful amount that we're being paid. I only stayed there for 4 months. I did some deals, and I moved on to DJK, and I moved on to another company that I've been with since. I was with DJK for like almost 5 years, and then this other company that I'm not going to mention because out of respect. DJK doesn't exist anymore, so it doesn't matter. But this company I've been with since the pandemic, October of 2020. So to sort of rewind a little bit, I had learned that our father, which was a deadbeat dad, a guy that I never knew, never wanted to know, really not a nice guy, was dying of cancer by the time early 2018 or late 2017. But around that time in late 2017, his brother, Ricky, I'll say Ricky, he was an LA doctor that basically apparently worked until he died. I guess from what I have been told, he died of a stroke. And that was in, I think, the fall of 2017. Actually, I think it was like early August of 2017. And then a few months later, our father, I have a sibling, a sister, and a step sibling. His name is Steven, and that is one of the characters I really want to focus on, a little bit later in this video. But by the time Ricky lost his life, for whatever real reason, I still have to, computer volume down. I don't really have the full answer or reason, the actual cause of death, but I didn't know this person. I never really engaged with this uncle of ours who lived in LA most of his adult life. He had died at the age of 68, and then shortly after, our father Paul would get cancer. Apparently, because he smoked a lot, he would get esophageal cancer, and some of that cancer would go into his lungs. And by the time that I found out that he had cancer, again, his name is Paul, I had visited this father of ours at the urging of my sibling, who was a very abusive person to our mother. And I'm not going to get too much into that. You don't have to take my word for it. You don't know me. But I'm going to say that this was the individual that really ended our mother's life a little too soon. My mother was going through some problems medical issues in 2018. Around that time, December 2018, even though I was aware that I was going to get, I was like the second part of the second individual in our father's estate to get the lion's share, and his son, who's like 5 years younger than me, I'm almost 50, he would get more of the lion's share. Then there's me, and then there's the sibling. This was a sibling that trolled and just constantly sought out our father in the 90s. He was a deadbeat dad, had nothing to do with this. I've only met him a handful of times, don't know the guy, don't want to know the guy. But she tried to have a relationship with him. But I think a lot of that had to do with financial reasons, because my sister was someone that was constantly after money ever since she was a young kid, stealing from our mother, stealing from others. That has been her main MO for much of her life, not just her adult life, but even by the time she was 12, 13. Girl was having sex by the time she was 12, because I witnessed it. She was going out with guys in their 20s. I guess they were pedophiles, if you can put it that way. That's what they were. She started getting pregnant, having abortions at the age of 14. This is a lot of dirty laundry shit that you may not need to know or care to know. But this was a person that was spoiled. I happen to be the person that was abused by our mother. And of course, as many of you may understand, it's like a textbook, typical or parable or fable or whatever you've heard before. It's the same story of one sibling being spoiled, favored, and the other one receiving the opposite treatment. And I was one of those people. I still love my mom. She's not alive anymore. But I'll say this is the drama that will end up being sort of intertwined with my neighbors in Brooklyn. I live in Brooklyn. And I, as a realtor, I'm now a real estate agent since 2015, 2016. I put them in this building. It's just a 5-apartment building. It's not really, it's basically a row house. It's not a brownstone or anything like that. But my point is, there's some drama that happened with my mother's death, racism that I encountered with my deadbeat dad, who was dying of cancer, and me bitching about it on YouTube, on other social media platforms, and it would come to haunt me via my neighbors. 2 of them are young black people, kind of BLM-ish, you know. I don't support BLM for my own reasons, and I'm a diehard liberal about a lot of things. I typically vote Democrat or Independent. You don't have to take my word for it. I'm not trying to be political, but these neighbors would be a crux in the storyline of what I'm trying to convey here. Because now there's a big problem with this building among tenants, including myself, the real estate agent that, did I say that in third person? I'm sorry. God forbid. I'm the realtor that let all these people in the apartment after checking their credentials. Some did not have very good credentials, but apparently one person was an alumni at the same school that I went to, same university system anyway, with the same publication design degree. This guy would end up lying about it. And hopefully I'll remember to get to that in this video. I don't want multiple parts either, okay? It's going to be a long video. I apologize. So if you want to tune out, I don't blame you. I'm doing this more for documentation. Before our father died, before my mother would die 30 days before our father died. But about a month before our mother would die, it was December of 2018, or about a couple months actually, I'm sorry. It was December of 2018, and I finally told our father, Paul, and Stephen, the stepbrother that I've never really met before other than a couple of times, didn't like the guy, seemed very, not a very, like, look in your eye, have a conversation with you, someone who did not seem to have much of a soul, if I can put it. I don't mean to be dramatic, but someone that probably is on that sociopathic or psychopathic spectrum, and not all those people are necessarily bad people. that you would, in the way that you would think. Okay, but this was a guy that I would learn that had abusive issues, stalking, hacking into computers, hacking into phones, iClouds, Google Clouds, with his own daughter and his baby mama. I'll put it that way. I don't think they were married or anything. This was the child was conceived in, I think, the late 90s or early 2000s. I don't think she's even 20 or 21. And it's 2022. So this was probably in the late 90s and early 2000 and or early 2000s. And just like the father, our biological father, he had issues with paying child support. But unlike the rest of us, Stephen, this step sibling, distant relative of mine, would have so many convictions, not just charges, but convictions from larceny, stalking, harassment, sexual harassment. If I gave you his name, which I would get in trouble for, I'm assuming this video would be banned. If you saw the litany of convictions, they're not charges, they're convictions. I've looked on Spokio, People's Records, People Search, Public Records, and I get different random, they're not all the same. Like I'll see new stuff on another site. I've been doing this only recently because I'm not the kind of person that enjoys trolling people, especially when it comes to social media content. I don't want to know what you have to say. I don't want to know your private life. I don't want to know your politics, especially if you're my neighbor. Okay. Which there's a point why I mentioned, there's a point to what I just mentioned. So this guy, Steven, was part of a text that I sent both him and our father, Paul, and I told him everything I thought of them. And that included not just being a deadbeat and never helping our mother raise us, never being in our lives, acting like he just saw us yesterday when I first met him in 25 years. I've met Paul for maybe 4 or 5 times in my life. I don't know the guy. I don't want to know the guy. Terrible personality, flat affect, you name it. Same thing with the son. But this particular individual, Stephen, is someone that was at a pool. I was on the balcony because we were renting a condo. And I was with my sister and her kids. Sometimes her husband would also accompany us. Not a very nice guy, a racist, a bigot, and I'm not going to get into that. But I will say that my sister became more like him when it came to racism. But she wasn't always like that from what I had experienced growing up. So I had witnessed Stephen at one end of the pool and one of my little nieces, who was 9 years old. She's actually my grandniece. My niece's, one of my younger niece's children. She was sitting awkwardly, and I noticed Stephen looking at her, basically gawking at her. And they had a more close relationship than the other nieces and nephews. He really paid a lot of attention to her. I would eventually go batshit a few months later and say what I wanted to say to Paul, our deadbeat dad, who was dying of cancer. And I also mentioned about what I thought of Stephen, about that experience, and if he's interested in kids. And I basically accused him of that, which was probably a dumb thing to do. But I'm going to tell you, just to cut that part of it short, he never acknowledged that accusation enough to say, either admit it, or well, no one's going to admit that, but he never denied it, other than eventually hacking into my iCloud and putting personal videos, personal pictures, hacking into my contacts, contacting people, my employer, my neighbors, my landlord apparently. I don't know if that's really, I'm not really sure about the landlord, but this guy would run amok with my private information and end up contacting, I'm sorry, sorry, if you don't mind, I got to get a little nicotine into me. This is emotionally draining just to think about this. I know it's not professional, I apologize. But the Stephen character would eventually contact the neighbors. And while that was happening, or even before, a little bit before that, he was sussing out my videos after he hacked into my iCloud, and I don't know how he did it. I would get a reference from the mother of his child and the child herself that this guy had done this to them, to the point of going into the child's iPhone and recording her and putting it on Snapchat. I mean, they would tell me this over and over again. It sounds unbelievable, but he basically did the same thing to me. His name is Steven, and I might put his full name in the description if I can get away with it, because I'm trying to put it out there, because the police, the FBI, my district police, Central Florida District Police, they're not doing anything about this. And he continues to do this as I'm telling you this right now. It's February 19th, 2022. He's still doing this. Even if platforms constantly delete my videos, my personal information, my personal pictures, he continues to upload them and continues to throw accusations against me. Okay? This guy's a bad guy, if I could put it that way. So the most unfortunate thing that has happened recently is that after I let two people in this building, one was in 2019, the other one was in 2020. They happened to be two young Black Americans, seemed very nice. The young Black American woman, maybe late 20s, maybe early 30s. I really can't tell. I mean, that's kind of young to me. She would have problems with the manager. She would have problems with the landlord. She would eventually tell me and other neighbors, not the black male, the young black male, the young black man, because he didn't move in until October of 2020. But this individual would tell us that she was disrespected by the landlord. The landlord would sexually harass her, would talk about her clothing, I think handled some part of her clothing and said he could wear it. And I've never known this about my landlord. Now, granted, I'm almost 50. I'm not a young woman, and maybe he did do something because she's young, you know. But that was a problem for me. I was upset about it. And we started talking about these issues based on our repair concerns. I had plumbing issues. The downstairs couple had issues with the wiring, the lighting, the big water bugs in the basement. Not that we inhabit that area typically, but, and this young Black woman the couple's a young white couple. The wife they're newly married. The wife is Russian and the husband is American, I believe. Maybe Canadian. I think he said he was Canadian, but I could be wrong about that. Anyway, this young Black female tenant of mine would tell me these things, and I'm pissed off. I'm like, I had missed some garments a month before I ever talked to these people. I don't know these individuals. We just crossed paths. Hey, how's it going? What's up? You know, no issues. Now I have a loud voice. Now, as a realtor and dealing with litigation issues over family matters, I can be loud. So I have that guilt. But no one's ever been a problem. I've been here almost 11 years. I've never had an issue with neighbors. But there would be a big fat ass issue, excuse my language, by the time I'm talking to you now. So this young woman upstairs, a young Black woman, is telling me that our Jamaican landlord is harassing her, sexually harassing her, saying these nasty things. And I believed her. This was around just a few years after the Me Too movement debuted, basically. And I wanted to help her. I risked my tenancy. I risked my business relationship with the landlord. I was renting for him in all the apartments since 2016. So there was other issues that happened with this particular individual, this young Black woman. She would eventually move into another apartment. I don't know if it was temporary. I thought it was maybe fumigating her apartment. Her issues were vermin, mold. I think it was really mildew, but it was mold that she was complaining about. Wiring issues, I think. And but mostly vermin issues. She was getting, but like none of us were getting major problems with that. It's New York City. You might see an occasional cockroach, water bug, or whatever, which scares the shit out of me too. But nothing major that she was dealing with. And so I agreed to be part of her letter. The couple downstairs agreed as well. And we were basically going to see what they would say. And I kind of knew that these individuals, all of them wanted to do the silent treatment kind of thing, just to see what they would say, what the manager would say, and what the landlord would say. I was trying to work with the manager, however, emailing her about my concerns about this young woman's issues with the landlord of a behavioral nature, a very bad, malignant, just bad behavior, sexual harassment. I didn't say what she said to us directly, but I told that manager that she needs to talk to her. Because I'm very concerned about it. I should be. I'm a middle-aged woman. A young woman's going through this with the guy I work for, basically. I rent his apartments. I wanted her to talk to the manager, which is a female lady in her 50s, not too much older than me. And I don't know if that ever happened, but then there would be a situation about a month later where this young woman from upstairs, a young black woman, that would move downstairs, and I'm showing this vacant apartment. I'm supposed to rent it for the landlord. The tenant's going to pay my fee, and I'm showing it to customers, and this young woman she's inhabiting that apartment, and she basically blames Jackie, and I blame Jackie. I'm like, why didn't Jackie tell me? She should have told you. This was a spur of the moment thing. I'm sorry. That's what basically this young woman said. And I text, so I cancel all my appointments, and I tell the manager of the landlord, that I was showing the apartment. When is she going to move out? Is she staying there permanently? Should I show the other apartment? Should I wait? The manager was not happy. She said that she never allowed this. She wanted me to take her out of the apartment and lock the door. And I had to put it gingerly because I felt like now I got this young woman in trouble. And maybe she was only in there temporarily because she was trying to maybe fumigate her apartment. I don't know. I'm not sure. I've been told by the landlord by now and the manager that she was trying to move in there without anybody's permission. I don't know if that's really easy to believe, but I wasn't trying to get her in trouble. That's the point that I'm trying to make. I did not know these things were going on. I would eventually learn that this young woman, would say that I narked on her, that I caused her problems. And that was by the time I let the young black man, and there's a reason why I'm mentioning race, okay? I think there's a little bit of commonality in their relationship. They would have a relationship as friends, or as not just as neighbors, but as friends, that would eventually go against me. That's why I'm mentioning their race. I think that is important, okay? I'm not saying it's always about race, all right? So in October of 2020, after all this shiznit happened with this young woman, and the manager and the landlord didn't like her, I'll put it that way. They had issues with her, and I don't know what was really going on before that. And God is my witness, I defended her. I said she was nice, she was quiet, never bothered anybody. So I was trying to help alleviate the situation. But that's my fault, because I was being too personable about it. I'm a realtor. I'm not the manager. I don't really perform any assistant management duties other than cleaning the common space and renting the apartments. But I'm not supposed to mess with any issues that neighbor or that tenant may have with the landlord and or manager. I really should have stayed out of it. So that's my fault number one. That's the start of my fault. I also, around the pandemic, around this time, I was too personable with one other neighbor downstairs. She's a Russian woman in her early 30s. I think her husband's in her early 30s. God, I'm sorry. Guys, I don't mean to do this, but I'm just addicted to nicotine. But nothing else. When I get stressed out, I gotta have this. I apologize. I do not smoke, but who cares if I do or not? I'm not judging anybody who does. But that neighbor downstairs, she's a Russian woman, married, just recently married to an American guy. We have a disagreement over handling the landlord situation, and there's no argument. There was an issue with a guy that was homeless, and he was at a laundromat about 6 to 8 blocks away, and he would be so belligerent. I used to give him money. I used to talk to him. I used to befriend him. I've known him for years. I've known of him for years. His name is Mike, and Mike would get into some trouble, and me and a mother and another mother, we would get together and say, this guy can't always be hanging out here. I mean, is he being paid? Is he working here? They would kick this guy out all the time. And I felt sorry for him, but he was just belligerent about the dumbest things. He was bothering people. He was bringing his friends in the laundromat. Now, if it was cold, I didn't pay attention to that so much, because if he needed a place to stay where he could get out of the cold, I'm not going to make it my business. But he was a problem over the years. I've never argued with this guy. When he was at our residence, he was looking through our trash. He wasn't taking out the trash. He wasn't working for the landlord and the manager, as far as I've never seen him actually take out our garbage to the curb. He was actually looking into our garbage. Just to maybe keep that in mind a little bit. And I was like, Mike, what are you doing here? Man, what's going on? Man, leave me the fuck alone, is what he said. And I said, God damn it. I did say that. God damn it, just get out of here. You're being nosy. I felt like he was going through our trash for information. That's the kind of guy that would not do it for food. He was clean. He was not someone that was desperate. I think he even went to shelters occasionally, at least. By now, as I'm telling you this, he has an apartment by the Bubble Land laundromat. He's got an apartment, so someone helps him, and he's not homeless. That's good. And he doesn't hang out at the laundromat anymore that much. Occasionally, I have seen him recently take out the trash. It seems like he was recently hired by the manager. It's weird because this laundromat is blocks away. I have not seen this guy in other yards or on our street, on the next street. I only see him every once in a while in our yard. That is kind of weird. And he's been, for what it's worth to say, Mike has been interacting with the people that don't kick him out. They'll let him in their office, the cash wrap area, the cash wrap. So I don't know if we've never argued before that moment when he told me to leave him alone or whatever. We've never argued. I've never face to face said anything to him derogative, and he's never done that to me. So it's a little weird. But I ended up, when that little event happened, I ended up texting the neighbors. And this is before Rush. I'm going to mention this neighbor. His name is Rush, and the other one is Louise. She's a girl, young white lady. I don't know where she's from, but they moved around the same time. These two studios were only around $13.50, really cheap, especially for this neighborhood. They moved in right away. I checked their credentials. Not the best, but they were. The manager agreed, and Rush said that he went to University of Maryland and majored in publication design. I have a master's in publication design myself. And I went to University of Baltimore, and it's a graduate degree. I graduated in 2004, May of 2004. And I'm like, cool, this guy's alumni. He's gay. I think he was gay. I'm not sure if he's a transgender male or if he's a gay male. I can't really tell. I can't remember what he said, but he said, I mentioned my concern about the safety of the women in here, these young women. Not so much myself. I'm an old broad, he's not going to mess with me, but I wanted to make sure he was cool, and he said, you don't have anything to worry about. I'm the least masculine guy you have to worry about. I think he's gay. So I'm just an idiot. I don't know much about transgender, and, I understand that homosexuality is biological, so I have nothing against gays. I have nothing against transgender folks. I mean, believe me, I can appreciate especially what transgenders go through in this American life. Just in our country, it's tough. I've seen a lot of social media. I've had some friends who are in that situation. I get it. Maybe not in the best way, but I think I understand well enough. So I thought this guy was harmless. He's an alumni. Great, we're going to get along. So the issue would arise not before I had an issue with Rush. There's going to be an issue with Rush, between Rush and I, a big one. When I mentioned Mike, the guy that was homeless, going through our trash, I mentioned this to our neighbors just to be on the lookout. I didn't trash talk the guy. It was just as a brief text. And the lady, her name's Marion. Stephen Niemeyer's going to, did I just say his name? He's going to see this video. And he's already probably contacted some of these people anyway, because there's been some interaction that I discovered lately between Stephen and some of these, at least one individual anyway. So fuck it. Excuse my language. I'm still not going to mention my name, but he's going to record this video, and he's going to do it anyway, no matter what I say, what names I mention. Screw it. So I'm doing this more so for documentation. And I'm sorry if I'm coming across as a drama queen, but, I can be one as it is. But Marion would tell me to basically leave the guy alone. And she's a black woman, maybe because he's he's actually a much older black male, a black man who is going through some things. He's homeless. I don't think he's looking for food, because he doesn't seem like someone who's starving for food. And he's fairly well groomed, just an ordinary guy you would see on the street in Flatbush, Prospect Park, Brooklyn. Okay, he doesn't seem homeless. So I don't think he was looking for food, but he was not taking out the garbage as a job for the landlord. He was not moving stuff. He was actually looking through the trash. And when I came down the steps, he immediately walks away. And so that's what alarmed me, as being maybe a potential problem with identity fraud and all that crap. And when she responded to me, I thought it was a little bold of her to talk to me like that. This was a group text with the other neighbors. And I said, no, I'm just going to, it wasn't even an argument. I said, no, I'm just going to deal with, I was firm about it. I was like, no, I'm just going to deal with the manager. I'll talk to her about it and we'll see what's up. No one texted me back that day. And they were trying to find someone to print out the letter that we were supposed to send to the manager and the landlord. And I'm like, I've got a printer, a new printer. I'll print it out. That whole day, nobody ever got back with me. They would still communicate in this thread. Now, these are young millennials and maybe a Gen Z here or there. And I'm this Karen. Apparently, I'm guessing by now, I'm this Karen that said no to this young woman, as if that's a front. I'm being an affront to her. I'm intimidating her. I'm being a problem for her. Okay, look, if I disagree with you, I'll let you know. That doesn't make me a Karen. But I'm a Karen to these people, and I see it all over social media when it comes to older people maybe standing their ground a little bit or a little bit more, and they're automatically denoted as that. That's how fucked up that generation is, in my opinion. Excuse my language, but that's a whole other drama, okay? So that time, there's no other new neighbors, but about a month later, this guy Rush and the girl Louise would move in. She'd get the top floor on my side of the building, and he would get the second floor directly across me. I'm sorry, guys. God. And then, I gotta take a little wine. I'm not drunk, not yet. I will admit I've been drinking a little. I'm too personal. This is my problem. This is my fault with these neighbors, and I will tell you the same thing I've told them during the pandemic and dealing with the grief over my mom's death. I've been drinking wine a little bit too much, like almost on a daily, not every day, but it's not good for me, and I don't recommend it, okay? That's not how you solve your issues. But this is not easy for me to do. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. So October 2020 comes around. This guy Rush moves in. Alumni, University of Maryland, publication design. And we both suck at it because I've seen his portfolio, part of it, and mine sucks as bad. So obviously right now he's not doing publication design work, and I've never really done it other than internships. I'm just a realtor, so I wish I was good at it. I'd probably not be talking to you right now about the situation. So meanwhile, Steven is posting pictures and videos of me all over social media. My name, calling me a whore, calling me a drug addict, alcoholic, which might be true. All kinds of nasty things. That is his response, as I mentioned before, when I accused him of looking at my niece in a wrong way. I did not accuse him of being a pedophile, but I asked him if he had an interest in kids, and he's never answered that. A normal person would say at least one time, before he dismisses you, which is fine, that's fair. A normal person would say, how dare you accuse me of this? I would never do that to a child. I would never be like that to. I don't see children like that. I don't. Blah, blah, blah. You would hear some kind of defense by now. And this is a stepbrother of mine with the same father. Actually, look more like the uncle, and that's another story. But I kind of mentioned that in my book. But anyway, oh, by the way, I wrote a book. It's called Made Not For You. I think I mentioned that earlier. And the neighbors would find out about it because my dumb ass would mention it to them as a kind of like a joke. Like, we had disagreed with this landlord bullshit issue, and I would mention, I'm just going through some things. I'm sorry. My mom, we weren't arguing. We were just like, I was like, guys, I know you're probably mad at me for being mean to Mike, the guy that's homeless. You don't know my situation with him. I don't even know why he's here all the time. He was here a lot during the summer. And he wasn't taking out the garbage. He was like either taking recyclables or just hanging around. Like I didn't see him take out the garbage around that time. He would later apparently be hired by the manager. For the years I've lived here, I have never seen this guy until 2020. Same as Mike. He has an apartment. God, I hate my hair. I got a bad haircut. Sorry, I'm being vain. But Mike was not around where I live until 2020. So I don't, maybe it's just happenstance. I try to keep an open mind about that, but I never argued with him face to face, but I did complain about him being kind of a nuisance and arguing with people, cussing, kind of being drunk a little bit. I don't know if he was on something or maybe he was just drinking a little bit too much. I've known this guy for years because I've been going to Bubble Land since 2015, 2016, whenever it reopened, all right? And he's been there ever since. He's not there so much now. Apparently he's got his own apartment. Any boo-hoo, he is one thing. But now I have an issue with Marion, the girl upstairs, the young black woman upstairs. I think I pissed her off. I think by the time I mentioned to Jackie that she was staying there, I didn't say that she was staying there. I asked Jackie, the manager, okay, her name is Jackie. I asked Jackie when she's going to move out or if she's going to stay in that apartment and should I focus on the other apartment and should it be clean? Should it be painted? Should it be this? And as I mentioned before, that manager got upset, wanted me to get her out of there. I was polite about it. I said, look, Marion, I did not know what was going on between you and Jackie. I don't know if there's some beef between you and her. I wasn't trying to get you in trouble, but she wants you to take your stuff and go back up to your original apartment. Girl didn't say anything to me. So basically she's pissed off. She was not happy. And I think she saw me as someone that got her in trouble. But I didn't mean to. Honest to God, I did not mean to get... There's no reason for me to get her in trouble. She's always been nice and quiet. She's told me that the landlord fucking took her, excuse my language, took her stuff and said he could wear it. And I'm thinking, I have stuff that's missing in my bathroom since July. Never told anybody about it because I thought maybe... But they were gone. I had to rebuy these undergarment things. My medication was gone. I will tell you now, I don't think it was the landlord. I do suspect another neighbor from outside this building, but I'm not going to get into that. because it's going to it confuses the shit out of me, myself. I'm not going to get into that. But by the time I put Rush, the guy from my alumni, which is bullshit, I eventually found out. He's never been to that school. And Louise, quiet girl, works every day almost, had nothing to do with her. But she would also start acting weird around me because March of 2021, when these two new people, two different apartments, are already in for about 4 or 5 months. It's March of 2021. I discover that Steven is putting more videos from my iCloud out on social media. Finally, I get them taken down. I check a few times, but he does it again under my nose, and I'm not aware of this. Around March of 2021, Rush does something that's really kind of off-putting. Someone tries to deliver me a scooter, my e-scooter that I bought from Amazon. It was a neighbor that I think is kind of creepy. I'm not going to mention him. And that's just the creepy guy that lives down the block. Killed a squirrel when I was trying to save the squirrel from going. I was trying to get the cops to get the squirrel out of the window, of my neighbor's window, and he wanted to kill it. I thought he was weird. I never was rude to him. This guy's even fixed my armoire in my apartment. I've given a couple of drinks just to be nice, make nice with him. He's fixed other apartments in this building only recently, only since fall of 2020. This guy, so this is, I'm not going to mention his name. He lives with his sister down the block. I don't like the guy, but I'm nice to him. I've never argued with him. I've never given him any problems. So there's so many layers here to tabulate. I know this does not make sense it's hard to understand, but I'm doing this for documentation just in case something happens. That's all I'm saying. So March 2021, Steven keeps posting personal information about me. It's directly from my iCloud. None of those videos ever made it to online. I never would put them online. They were just stupid drunk Miami videos, and I think a few of them in this apartment, and just stupid videos. It's my fault. It's like you are guilty of recording yourself on your iPhone, and even if you don't put it anywhere, you fucked yourself. Excuse my language, but you've messed up yourself in a way where if someone hacks into your business, you could lose your job. You could be outcasted on some level. And I'm too old to be outcasted. I'm almost 50. I don't need to be dealing with that crap. I believe by the time this guy, Rush, and he always locked himself out. If he needed anything, I would unlock the door for him. I would give him some bug spray because he saw a big black bug one time. And again, we don't have major problems with that because I've asked around a few times. I clean the common areas as best I can because the landlord, I guess, forgot that he doesn't have to do it anymore. I volunteered to do it, but, that's fine. I don't like a messy common space. But we don't have a lot of vermin issues. It is New York City, but I gave him the little bait. I gave him one of my bait bottles that I bought from Amazon. Why am I saying this? Because I'm trying to be a neighbor. I'm trying to make him feel comfortable. I don't want him to feel bad about this place or complain to the landlord about this or that. Because Marion was already, according to the manager, was already making complaints about this, that, and they were not getting along. I didn't want to have more problems with other neighbors. I didn't have a problem with them. I was like, I'm not the manager anyway, I would share my food if I was getting like extra food, produce from certain businesses, from online businesses. If I didn't need it, I would give it to the neighbors. If they needed anything, if they needed my Wi-Fi, I gave Rush my Wi-Fi. I gave Olga and Chris downstairs my Wi-Fi. No problem. I'm not that interesting. So if they're hacking into my Wi-Fi, looking up sites I'm going to, I'm not that interesting anyway. So they're not going to find shit on me anyway, other than what Steven put online. And this would haunt me because by the time Marion would accuse me of stealing her groceries, which was about 4 or 5 months ago, November of 2021, just over a year, the new folks moved in, Rush and Louise, she would accuse me of stealing her groceries. I went off on her. I did a group text. I said, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I'm part of this drama. I'm sick of this. The vibe is terrible. There's a little few things that happen intermittent to that, but it's not even worth going into because I'm taking it. It's just like almost an hour long shit show. But Olga would run to her defense to my apartment and basically curse my ass out and actually say, well, you did. And Olga's been nice to me. Like, she's even been like, oh, Jackie cares about you. And we like you. Not love, but we like you. We've never had a problem with you. We would never talk to Steven. We don't know who this guy is. Okay. And I believe them. And I'm not saying they at the time were lying about that, but the relationship that I had, especially with Marion, and the drama that would unfold over the repairs, and then the sexual harassment claims and this and that. And I even said, my stuff's missing. And what if it is Ian, the landlord, that's doing this? I mean, if he did this to you, he probably took my stuff. I was missing medication in July. And I talked to these people in August. This is July of 2020. August of 2020, we're now talking about these concerns. So it has to be the landlord. By now, I don't believe it's Ian, the landlord. I believe it's someone else from outside this building because my stuff has been missing. I've had missing money. It's a long, drawn out. I've been here 10 years. Drama has happened before, but this drama that I'm talking about now is really awful. Because when Marion would accuse me out of the blue of stealing her Amazon Fresh that was mixed in with my Amazon Fresh, we got the orders on the same day. The courier put everything together. It was 5 items that she had. Peanuts, Debbie snacks, ice cream, cheese. I forgot the other one. It was mixed in with my groceries. There was another separate bag that had like Farmer's Fresh. Maybe that was her company that she was going to. But her other stuff was mixed in with mine. How did that happen? And even if it was like a separate, it was all with my order. I just thought Amazon, as usual, fucks up orders. They either do not deliver, either they don't deliver some of the products, or they'll deliver something that I ordered a year ago. That's Amazon. That's Jeff Bezos for you, okay? So I'm thinking nothing about it, and now she's accusing me of stealing her stuff. Like, why did you take my stuff? I'd like to have it. Can I have it back, please? And I went off on her. I did. She got her stuff, no problem. And then Olga gets involved. You did take her stuff. You took her stuff. And I'm like, you don't know anything about this. And I'm trying to tell Olga, this is not meant directly against yourself, but someone's been gossiping. The vibe about me, the vibe in this building has been fucked up. And she's acting like it's all in my head and they've never talked about me. There's been situations before that. And this is petty. It sounds petty. It does. I get it. But there are situations before this drama happened, before November of 2021, I'd be taking out the trash, taking out my recyclables. Olga's with Rush. They're like doing what I think he's always smoking. He's always in and out. If I knew this guy was a smoker and this guy would be the biggest drama. And I'm going to get to that. If I knew this guy was going to be a problem, a liar about where he went to school, never having a degree in publication or any degree for that matter, smoking all the time, smoking weed, I would have not let this, and I smoke weed sometimes, but we're not allowed to smoke in the building. I would not have, my dumb ass made a mistake. I have to own up to that. If I knew better, I would not have let him in. And I forgot about the part about when I introduced Marion to him and the other neighbors. Marion must have maybe said something because he would pay the prorated rent and then he would change his mind. And this is a bad realtor moment for me as well. I would try to give him an out. Like, if you're not happy with this situation, you have to pay the prorated rent because you moved in 4 days. You did not tell me. I did not give you permission. I've already asked permission for the other girl to move in a couple days or 1 day before. I would always go to the manager about that, and that was fine with the manager, but you never told me you were going to move in early. The guy, the weirdo from down the street, would narc on both of us, okay? If it was a couple of days, I might not have said anything. If he just, it's not a big deal. It's a couple of days. But he moved in 4 days. Sorry, let me put this on pause. My sling is on.
Anything it takes to make dentistry work.
1 second.
For your life.
Sorry. So this guy, Rush, this is gonna be the crux, the clincher, whatever the hell you want to call it, the biggest problem of all. Okay, and I'm not saying I'm innocent in this. I'm not saying I'm not a problem at all. But this guy refused to pay that rent, that prorated rent, and I gave him an out because I was seeing red flags. But then he was nice. He was like, I'll pay half of it if that's fair to you. And he was I would love you as a neighbor. And I love that part. The evil, the bad trait, the toxic trait in me is like, this is what you get for doing what you're trying to do. Take advantage of the situation. Just because Marion or someone must have said something bad about me. Maybe being a racist against a homeless guy, or, oh, she drinks. And Amy Schumer. I mentioned Amy Schumer. I think I mentioned that before to you guys. She's a weirdo. She's Karen. She's this. She's that. I don't know if that happened, but something happened where he went from, oh, I don't mind paying the prorated rent. I don't mind at all, to saying, well, Debbie, you corralled me into, you said I could kind of like move my stuff. I said you can move your stuff in, but that doesn't mean you move your whole ass in. I actually said to all tenants, if you move some of your stuff in, let me know, because I want to know when, if it's appropriate, if there's something going on. Let me know if you want to move some of your stuff in, or if you want to move in early, let me know, and we'll plan around it. He did not do that. And by the time I introduced everybody via email, I don't like to use their phone numbers right away. That's kind of personal, but I introduced everyone via email. And no one ever responded back. This is the first time no one ever responded in that thread. Like in the last few years I've rented this place. So I felt a little off about that. I didn't think much about it, but he refused to pay that rent, and I ended up paying for it. It was only $180, but I should not have had to do that. I had already told Jackie that he was going to pay the prorated rent. She found out because that guy, the weirdo, the creepo over there, and I know I'm being kind of juvenile using that name, but that guy is a creep. And I'm not going to get into that. I don't have time. It's too much time already passed. Too much time has already passed, and I don't want to waste time on that guy. But he would tell Jackie that this guy moved in 4 days earlier, and she's asking me about it. I'm like, oh, he's going to pay. He'll pay the prorated rent. But I ended up doing it. So going forward from the time they moved in and Stephen putting my personal information constantly, especially March 2021, I think some of these people found out, at least this guy, Rush, 10 feet away from me, found out. And when Marion accused me in November of 2021 of stealing her stuff, I went off on the neighbors. I didn't cuss. Well, I kind of cussed Olga out because she was getting all mad at me and coming up to my apartment, shaking, lunging like, what? I can't even describe how she acted. Like, I've never argued. I've never not got along with her. Like, we've never had a bad word or attitude towards one another. There was that time when, God, I forgot about this shit too. Rush slammed the door in my face when, I think I mentioned this before, but Rush had slammed the door in my face. Not on purpose, but he may have been in a hurry. We were still talking. Didn't say, he just slammed the door when I was still trying to find out who was trying to deliver something, who was at my door. I don't want to get too much in detail about that, but it was rude. It was something that I felt like it was not respectful. And I'm trying to figure out who this guy was. Is someone knocking at my door to deliver something? Is it food? Is it Amazon? And I couldn't make out what he was saying. And I was like, who is it again? And he slammed the door. And I mentioned that was not polite. I didn't argue with him. You're making me uncomfortable. It's all in your imagination. Like, he could have said, oh, no, I didn't mean to do that. It's cool. I was just in a hurry. I'm working. And I would have been like, cool, no problem. I'm sorry. Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned that. Instead, he was like, it's your imagination. You're making me uncomfortable. It's that kind of attitude. I did not like this guy. This guy was a red flag that I should have never put in this building. I can deal with 10 Marians, the girl upstairs. This guy was the biggest mistake I ever made as a realtor and as a neighbor. And now this guy, ever since I basically cursed Olga out. Now she's going to use this video. She's going to find this video. And her butt's going to be very, very happy to see this video. Okay. I said some things that were impolite to her because she came up to me and cursed me out. And almost I backed into my scooter right there, like that scooter right there. I backed into one of the wheels that has like a covering to protect it, cut my leg. I was like, Olga, I don't want to argue with you. I don't even know what you're saying. Like, she's kind of like Russian American, but she was so upset. I couldn't make out what she was saying. And I made that mistake as a realtor. The number one, this is one thing that's worth mentioning. If none of this really matters to any of you, if you're a realtor, if you're a landlord, if you're a super, if you're a manager of that building, you better be careful, especially if you live in the same building. Be very aware of how you communicate, even if it's just pleasantries, conversations that are congenial and amiable and all that. Be very careful how you conduct yourself. I'm not even getting to the point of arguing and cussing each other out. That's awful. But be very, very careful how you conduct yourself. Don't ever, ever, ever. And I know if anybody's seeing this, for the most part, common sense tells you never be personable to your neighbors. Even if you're not a realtor, manager, landlord, super, whatever. If you're just a neighbor, be very careful in how you conduct yourself, and don't be too intimate with your issues in life. Olga would tell me when we disagreed on the landlord, we didn't even argue. There was no like blah, blah. That was not even an issue. We just disagreed on how we should handle this. And she would get so upset with me and say, I think that you're going through something. You mentioned Amy Schumer, or you mentioned your mom dying. I think that you should take the medication I'm taking. She was taking Lexapro. That's a fucking dumb thing to say. This was the same person after my mom died. And I only go to Thanksgiving either with a personal friend of mine, a guy I'm dating, and that only happened once. I only go to Thanksgiving if I go somewhere for holiday to my mom's place. I would never go with, this woman had the nerve. This woman, Olga, it's not because I'm not going to use her being Russian. She's like Russian American. She's not like, it doesn't matter if she's Russian or not, okay? Some people might think, well, these people are naive. They're this, they're that. No, that's not fair to say. I understand that, okay? But she was stupid and ignorant enough to not only recommend Lexapro to me, okay, but to also ask me to go to Thanksgiving with her. Like, I think she even said it like this. This is shortly after my mom died. It was Thanksgiving, or before Thanksgiving, and she would ask me, she didn't even ask me, she said, why don't you come with us for Thanksgiving? Like, why would I'm not even friends with you. I don't really talk to you other than crossing paths with you. But my stupid ass was already too personal with her. Not as a friend, but as someone that was going through some things. Amy Schumer really did plagiarize off my book, but you don't have to, you can take that for however you want to take it, okay? But I made the fatal mistake. It was a fatal mistake because I gave these people a reason to disrespect me. And that's why, I'm not just doing this for documentation, but I want to maybe encourage some folks. Don't do this, especially as realtors and landlords and managers. A lot of managers are realtors, from my experience. Don't do this shit like I've done, okay? I'm already going into an hour. It's almost 60 minutes, so I don't think that there's anybody watching this by now, or maybe you had to fast forward. But if you're still here, thank you for your time. Bye. I guess that's it. No, it's still going.